All right, everyone. It feels like just yesterday I was talking about Gab. In fact, I think I was, or the day before. And now we've got to talk again about the platform because it got severed by Stripe. Stripe is a payment processor. It's like, well, you've got adult content on your site. You got more offensive stuff. You need to do more to tamp down on that, or we can't service you. So here again, you see the fundamental problem of the argument. Well, it's a free market, which it's not anyway, but tax-wise. Just make your own website. You have the right to make your own Twitter if you don't like Twitter's rules. That's what Gab has basically done. It's rapidly growing, and then this sort of thing happens. And they've also had problems before with their domain registrar. I believe they got shut out by one domain registrar to change. Now they have to get a different payment processor. What we need, what alt tech needs to do, is design its own strictly libertarian payment processor, one that's, big enough and powerful enough, has enough, new sites and users using it to coincide, to sync with banks and so forth, and to put pressure on the other processors to cut it out. Because if that's not accomplished, until you have that, you need to have a sort of an alt tech fundraising ability, because obviously the standard ways in which people raise money, while they can work for some elements of the alt media, like Patreon doesn't care if I have a page there. There have been others that are kicked off, especially if they do real world activism or journalism. That's, for some reason, the liberals these days, so-called, think that people should be legitimately banned off of a website for doing activism. 10 years ago, if you had said to them, well, there will come a day at which Mark Zuckerberg might kick your page off Facebook because, you were seen in the crowd at the wrong rally, they would have called it a conspiracy theory, and they would have said, well, no one would ever support that. It would have been considered dystopian. Now, for some odd reason, it's considered perfectly normal, and in fact, a pragmatic strategy for dealing with hate and offensive things. If we just shove it under the rug, it will go away. It's no longer there. Well, of course it is. The fact is that Gab and this cat just started doing singy thing. She's old and has Alzheimer's, like literal cat Alzheimer's. Sometimes she wanders around the hallway and does that. What we've got is a situation, what I have said now for over a year, is that these sites are doing a service to the world by giving a voice, giving a platform to groups of people who otherwise feel marginalized. When you put someone under stress, when you marginalize them, when you make them feel like what they have to say is so taboo it shouldn't even be said, it can lead to the internalization of anger and frustration psychologically. You can also get echo chambers forming on sites that aren't really publicly accessible. If you're trying to chase Gab and Minds and BitChute and sites like that, which are still, they're open to the public offline, into sites, into even smaller echo chambers that are like on Tor, fucking Onion Link or something. People like me who can provide a moderating influence and maybe, talk people down, influence people away from maybe the more fringe ideologies, we can't operate. We're not going to waste our time, number one. Number two, you're going to start persecuting us. Just like they tried to persecute me and others after the Spencer debate. That's literally the headline of the Data Society report. Now, of course, they don't mention my username there. They probably should have. Would have been good for some extra subscribers. It would have been rather funny. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like guilt by association. And so you go on Gab, and you have all these people that have gobbled up the bullshit propaganda. Well, Gab's just a Nazi site. Well, that's funny. I'm there. A bunch of Brazilians who can't use Twitter anymore decided to go there. A bunch of apparently like Moroccans or some group had joined up because some African country, I believe, had blocked Twitter. So people started using Gab because it wasn't blocked. This happens frequently. It's beginning to absorb. The reason why Gab, I think, is public enemy number one of the authoritarians is they realize Twitter's the most vulnerable. They realize Facebook's vulnerable, certainly, and Minds is certainly growing quite quickly, especially since it already has a blogging functionality and video hosting to an extent. It's more like Live Leak level video hosting. In all honesty, I wish they'd much more simplistically design that. They should have a better video ability. That'd be my only beef at this point. Now that I've out-boomered the blogging system and actually understand it, the reason why Gab is number one is because unlike the other main tech sites, the alt-tech competitors don't have quite as much of an advantage as Gab does. It's raised the most money. I believe it has now the largest user base by a considerable margin. And its competitor, I mean, somebody pointed out, oh, their operative business strategy is to exist and let Twitter die. That's probably a pretty good strategy. It's working. Twitter is hemorrhaging users because people keep getting abused. Intrinsically, when you take off a user that has, a million fans or 100,000 fans here, 20,000 fans there, some of those people are like, to hell with it. I'm leaving too. Twitter has made it harder. Actually, one disadvantage it has is actually how Twitter has made it harder than any other site, as far as I know, to actually go back on the platform. It's so mobile based and stuff, so they'll like do IP blocking. Most people use like the mobile version. Like, I think if you're using desktop, they can't really stop you, but because of all the verification procedures, then probably try to get people caught up. What they do is they ask for a copy of your ID. It's like, because Twitter's not a legal entity, just provide a fake ID or something. I don't know. Is that I don't think they can tell the difference. The fuck are they gonna do? Yeah, my name is Ham Sandwich. No, trust, I had like hippie parents and stuff. They were naming me based on how my ears looked. Now, basically, Gab is just sitting there like scratching its head watching Twitter implode. And so, since Twitter can't really take them on, since Twitter is actually being outcompeted by a site 1% its own size at this point, what do? They call up Stripe. They call up the payment processor. We've seen this. Fiscal vulnerability is the biggest problem for alt tech. Now it's slowly repairing itself. You've got more reliance on crypto. You've got some firms willing to host like alt tech sites. Don't really have a problem. But alt tech needs to get together and get a domain registrar going, a payment processor, a fundraising platform. I mean a standard one, because otherwise alt tech is just going to be the crypto crowd. That's for creators. For larger content creators, that doesn't make as much fiscal sense. People have to earn a living. They're going to stay where the money is. So alt tech needs to have a more standard approach as well. And then they would need a security site, something like Cloudflare. Everything else is already there. They've already got all the creative platforms, video, in text form, pictures, all of that is all there. It's highly intercommunicative. It's all growing. It's dynamic and vibrant and diverse, despite what the left may think. Everything else is already in place for alt tech to skyrocket, to actually supplant existing. For like Facebook and Twitter wouldn't be able to outcompete. YouTube, I think, would be a bit different. BitChute is certainly innovating, though, and making it cheaper to host video, which, once it solves a few basic stability issues, would be great. But beyond that, there needs to be more infrastructure in place. That's just one ring of the internet that alt tech has managed to more or less perfect at this point. But it's a fairly standard, it's the lowest level. It needs a registrar, a payment processor and stuff. Stripe shouldn't be able to simply abuse websites offline. In essence, in partnership with big tech firms that it makes a lot of money with, going after the smaller upstart competitors based on the selective use of its TOS that it doesn't even use. Stripe has no problem processing payments for a small, innocuous, out-of-the-way, edgy site that just, does whatever. It doesn't care about that. It will never enforce its TOS despite them being violated. You have to have a complaint, which I think probably came from Twitter, in all honesty, in this sense. You have to have that, and then number two, Stripe has to give a damn. No, I don't think they would give a damn unless Gab were doing really well. Unfortunately for them, again, the same thing is in effect with tech firms themselves as with individuals. When suppression is seen, observed objectively, as we see it here, or perceived of, it tends to drive more growth and more attention. It also gives a very, very cheap bit of ammunition to the person or the group that's being suppressed. I think that's what's happening currently. Alt tech is going to keep growing. I can't imagine that we're going to see a scenario in which these sites stop growing. That would hold true for Steemit. DTube now has live streaming Gab and Gab TV, which is sort of the live video style counterpart to Gab's main, Twitter style situation. I can imagine why people are using it more. You should definitely be on Gab. You should definitely be on Minds and BitChute and Steemit as well. These four sites especially are highly functional. They do just fine. Even older existing tech, I've got a fucking Daily Motion channel. There's a reason for that. It's because of instability. I'm a content creator. My job is simply to make content for people who happen to be part of my audience. So I'm not going to allow anything to endanger my ability to continue doing so without interruption. I want to be in a situation where even if I got banned off 2 or 3 sites, my content would still all be there, people would still be able to go to it and have a good time. That's what I intend to do. Alt tech makes it a lot easier. I hope that there are more alt tech firms that spring up as well. That's about all. Peace out.